So imagine walking into your office tomorrow. You head to the break room to grab a coffee, and the lanyard hanging around your coworker's neck isn't just some standard plastic ID badge.
It is an actual live outward-facing camera.
Exactly. But one that is hooked directly up to an artificial intelligence agent, which is actively analyzing your conversation and, the physical environment around you. Now, push that a step further and imagine that the company manufacturing that wearable camera is partly owned by the United States government. If you are trying to understand where the global economy is heading, you really don't need to look a decade into the future. We're already standing right in the middle of it.
We absolutely are. We are tracking a moment where the traditional playbook for how an industry matures is it's being thrown completely out the window. Because usually a new consumer product arrives, people slowly figure out how to use it, regulators eventually catch up like a decade later, and then financial markets gradually adjust their valuations. But today's source material reveals the exact opposite happening in real time. We are watching the rules of labor, physical hardware, and massive institutional investment being rewritten simultaneously.
Which means the mission for our analysis today is to map out the actual flow of capital and translate these massive structural shifts into clear market realities. We are not looking at a single unified theory of the economy here. We're watching several distinct, fascinating pressures moving in totally different directions. I mean, we have the federal government actively positioning itself as a venture capitalist.
Right, and at the very same time, we have tech founders publicly pleading for historical, heavy-handed regulatory frameworks to be applied to their own operations.
And while all that top-down maneuvering is happening, billionaires are debating the financial return on investment of a college degree, while tech giants are attempting to literally strap AI to our chests. So, starting with the most immediate macro development, there is a major White House meeting coming up that completely redefines the government's role in the market.
Yeah, the president is gathering the leadership of major technology firms. We're talking Google, Microsoft, OpenAI, SpaceX, and Anthropic. And the agenda is not a standard regulatory check-in or,
Hmm?
a photo op. They're discussing the United States government taking a direct financial stake in the future of these companies. The stated incentive from the administration is to create and this is a, quote, partnership with the American public.
Hold on, let me make sure I'm wrapping my head around the financial structure of this. Because traditional government intervention usually looks like, I don't know, a subsidy or a tax grant. The government hands out money to encourage a company to build a factory in a specific state, which is functionally a sunk cost for the taxpayer in hopes of generating local jobs. But equity is an entirely different beast. You are talking about the sovereign government operating essentially like a sovereign wealth fund.
It's a massive shift, but we actually have a very recent historical precedent for this specific strategy in the sources. Last year, the government took a 10% stake in the chipmaker Intel. By taking a percentage stake rather than issuing a grant, the administration claims the United States has already generated a direct financial return on that Intel investment. Taxpayers literally own a slice of the pie.
And what makes this fascinating from a market perspective is the bizarre corporate diplomacy aligning behind it. OpenAI chief executive Sam Altman recently traveled to Washington and met with Senator Bernie Sanders. Following that meeting, the president noted that on economics, he and Sanders aren't that far apart. You are seeing an unusual bipartisan alignment around the idea of public capital extracting private market returns.
The financial gravitational pull required to create a Bernie Sanders and Sam Altman alliance is staggering. And we're also seeing the gravity warp active legal battles. I mean, Anthropic is currently embroiled in a lawsuit with the Department of Defense over a refusal to accept broad new contract terms, which actually led to Anthropic being excised from certain government operations.
But despite that active legal friction, Anthropic is in daily conversations with the U.S. government to find ways to be helpful to national security. And they recently publicly praised the president's executive order on AI. It turns out, even if you are actively fighting in court, the promise of a massive federal partnership is enough to make everyone sit around the same table.
Well, the underlying tension here is really about control versus capital. In private equity, a board seat and an equity stake grant you access to internal operational data and strategic direction. If you own a piece of the foundational model, you do not just regulate it from the outside through slow legislative processes. You influence its development from the inside, ensuring that commercial product roadmaps align with national defense priorities.
But if I am an outside investor looking at this, I have to ask a highly skeptical question. Is the incentive here purely about securing a financial return on investment for taxpayers, or is this a backdoor strategy to buy a seat on the cap table specifically to control those national security interests? Because if the government is the regulator and the investor, that creates a massive conflict of interest for the broader open market.
That dual incentive is the exact tightrope these companies are walking. And strangely, the tech giants seem to be welcoming the oversight. We are seeing a massive shift from the government trying to buy equity to the companies actively asking for government regulation to protect the broader market. Anthropic is nearing what could be one of the most valuable stock listings in history, with private investors currently estimating the company's valuation at nearly $1 trillion.
$1 trillion. Yet amidst this insane financial momentum, Anthropic co-founder Jack Clark is publicly warning that the AI industry currently has a gas pedal, but absolutely no brake pedal. To understand why a trillion-dollar company is hitting the panic button on its own product, we have to look at the actual physics of what they are building.
Exactly. Anthropic operates a popular chatbot called Claude. And according to Clark, Claude is currently operating on code where 80% of the system was written by the AI itself.
Wait, 80% is already self-written?
80%. And let's unpack how that recursive loop actually works. A human programmer writes code, tests it, finds a bug, and rewrites it. That takes hours. An AI generating its own code can test, find errors, and rewrite thousands of times a minute. Clark projects that getting to 100% self-written code is possible within 2 years.
2 years. That represents a threshold where the technology develops entirely without human engineering input, accelerating at a pace completely disconnected from human labor constraints.
And that speed is terrifying. Clark draws a direct, fascinating parallel between the current landscape and the early oil boom, referencing the oil barons of the last century. In the early days of oil, the market was chaotic, incredibly dangerous, and heavily reliant on the erratic behavior of individual wildcatters and monopolists striking it rich in a field.
Right, and sensible regulatory frameworks are what ultimately gave the public and massive institutional investors confidence in oil as a reliable global commodity. Policy established safety standards, pricing transparency, and distribution rules.
That's the argument. Clark is saying that without similar policy for artificial intelligence, the global economy is flying blind, relying entirely on the personal ethics and personalities of a few tech CEOs. To stabilize a trillion-dollar valuation, you need the boring, predictable bedrock of federal regulation.
Speaking of building a reliable foundation for your own future, a quick reminder that you can find financial candy, brain candy, and classic audiobooks at claireandhoratio.com. But looking analytically at the timing of Clark's warning, I am inherently suspicious. Why is a company that is about to go public with a trillion-dollar valuation loudly broadcasting its own massive risks? Could asking for a brake pedal actually be a brilliant market mode? If you convince the government to mandate incredibly strict, expensive safety protocols, you effectively lock in your dominance by raising the regulatory barrier to entry so high that a lean startup in a garage can never afford to compete.
Regulatory capture is one of the oldest economic strategies in the playbook. When a company achieves massive scale, the sheer cost of legal compliance becomes a competitive weapon. Anthropic, Google, and OpenAI have the billions of dollars required to meet a theoretical federal safety standard. An open-source competitor does not. The brake pedal narrative is doing two things at once. It is genuinely addressing existential technical risks of self-writing code, but it is also conveniently constructing a fortress around the current market leaders.
If these tech giants successfully build that regulatory moat and achieve 100% self-rating code, it begs a terrifying question for the average person listening to this. What exactly is the point of going to college if the AI is doing all the heavy lifting? Shifting from the macroeconomic scale of trillion-dollar tech valuations down to the microeconomic reality of human labor, we have to look at how the open market values education right now.
Entrepreneur Peter Diamandis recently sparked a massive debate on this exact friction point. He argued that universities are charging students roughly $300,000 for degrees that teach hard skills. Large language models can now perform at little to no cost. He framed this current dynamic as potentially the greatest individual misallocation of capital in recent history.
Which is an incredibly sobering thought if you are currently staring down a mountain of student debt. But Mark Cuban pushed back aggressively against that framing in the sources. While Cuban agreed that college costs have become extortionary, he argued that algorithms simply cannot replicate the broader, critical experiences of higher education.
Cuban pointed out that an LLM cannot teach accountability, it cannot help you navigate complex social situations, build personal responsibility, or impart the fundamental human skill of how to learn.
And Epic Games founder Tim Sweeney added a crucial distinction to this debate by focusing on the target demographic of the learner. Sweeney argued that for adult professionals trying to upskill, LLMs provide far superior, directed, personalized instruction compared to traditional one-to-many classroom teaching. The underlying engine here is efficiency.
Because a university classroom forces every single student to move at the exact median pace of the group, inherently leaving some behind and totally disengaging others who learn faster. An LLM acts as an infinitely patient, perfectly tailored private tutor. For an adult with limited time, that is a massive productivity multiplier.
But Jack Clark from Anthropic offered perhaps the most insightful assessment of where human value actually sits in this new economy. He noted that internally at Anthropic, the real bottleneck is no longer the engineering required to turn an idea into reality because, as we discussed, the AI is handling more and more of that execution. The actual bottleneck is generating good ideas in the first place.
So his advice for young people fearful of the changing economy is to pursue a liberal arts education, develop diverse hobbies, and read broadly. That represents a complete inversion of the labor market we have known for the last 30 years.
Completely. Since the advent of the personal computer, the financial premium was placed on STEM execution. Can you write the code? Can you build the financial model? Can you perform the technical task?
Exactly. But if execution is commoditized to zero cost by self-writing code, the premium shifts entirely to cognitive breadth. Creativity, lateral thinking, and the ability to connect disparate, weird concepts become the scarce resources that command the highest salaries.
So if we treat a $300,000 college degree like an investment portfolio, the hard skills portion of that portfolio, the coding classes, the data entry training, might be depreciating to near zero. That means the soft skills, the accountability, the social navigation, the lateral thinking, have to carry the entire financial return on investment. But is the job market actually equipped to accurately price those soft skills? If I submit a resume, the hiring algorithm checks to see if I know Excel. It does not know how to quantify my creative intent.
Human resources departments and automated hiring algorithms are notoriously terrible at pricing soft skills because they are invisible on a piece of paper. For decades, the corporate world relied on the prestige of the university brand as a lazy proxy for those skills. If the technical proficiency embedded in that degree loses its market value, companies will have to completely tear down and redesign how they evaluate human talent. They will have to build assessment architectures that measure a candidate's adaptability, their problem-solving intent, and how they conceptualize an idea before a machine ever executes it.
Connecting this abstract debate about human skills directly to how these tools will sit in your physical office, we are seeing a radical shift in hardware. Microsoft is currently testing a new wearable artificial intelligence gadget aimed directly at office workers. This is not software on a screen. This is a physical object you wear on your body.
This initiative, internally called Project Solara, involves two distinct form factors unveiled at their recent developer conference. The first is a small, portable desk cube featuring a touch and voice-activated screen. The second, and far more radical, is a wearable access badge designed to hang around your neck on a lanyard or sit on your belt loop.
And the technical setup powering this badge fundamentally changes the relationship between the worker and the software. It is activated by a simple fingerprint scan and connects you directly to your AI agents. These are autonomous bots actively doing tasks in the background, drafting emails or organizing data without requiring you to open a laptop or sit at a desk. Crucially, this wearable badge is equipped with a small, outward-facing camera.
During a demonstration, a Microsoft executive named Stephen Bathish activated the badge, pointed it at the conference crowd, and instructed it to take pictures of the audience and send them for his review. Bathish explicitly stated that the camera allows these AI agents to better understand and help take action on the environment around them. The system is currently being piloted by a few hundred Microsoft employees to determine exactly how these physical forms should be mass-produced for the broader consumer market.
See, there is a massive psychological and practical difference between an AI tool I choose to visit on a web browser and an AI entity with a camera physically strapped to my chest at the office water cooler. Is this being designed as an efficiency tool to liberate workers from their keyboards, or is the market incentive here to create the ultimate literal micromanager?
The underlying corporate incentive always bends toward data telemetry. Right now, your company only captures your productivity metrics when you are actively typing, clicking, or logged into their specific software environment. Your offline time is dark to them.
Right. But a wearable camera-equipped badge creates a continuous, unbroken data stream of your physical environment, your informal conversations, and your offline workflows.
Exactly. While it is marketed to the employee as a tool to give you frictionless access to your AI assistants on the go,
Hmm.
the secondary market effect for the employer is the total digitization of the physical office space. It effectively turns every employee's physical presence into an analyzable, highly profitable data point.
We are looking at a completely new economic architecture being built simultaneously from the top down and the bottom up. From the top down, you have sovereign wealth maneuvers with the U.S. government taking equity stakes and tech founders pushing to establish historical oil boom style regulatory frameworks to stabilize their trillion-dollar valuations.
And from the bottom up, you have the rapid depreciation of traditional hard skills, fundamentally altering the return on investment of a college degree, alongside the literal physical integration of autonomous AI agents into our daily office wear. The friction between those massive macro forces and the daily micro experience of the worker is where the next decade of wealth will be created and lost.
If artificial intelligence is on track to write 100% of its own code and our coworkers are wearing cameras on their chests that continuously digitize our physical environment, the ultimate premium asset of the future won't just be human intent. If every conversation in the office is being analyzed by an autonomous agent on a lanyard, we might soon see the emergence of analog havens, premium workspaces, off-grid retreats, or social clubs that explicitly ban all AI wearables. Absolute unrecorded privacy might become the ultimate luxury commodity in a market where everything else is optimized.
A market where the absence of technology suddenly commands a higher price than the technology itself.
And that bizarre pricing dynamic is exactly what we will be watching. Thank you for joining us for this analysis of the weird incentives and structural shifts driving the economy today. Stay curious, look closely at the tools you are asked to wear, and keep an eye on where the money leads.